All right, Griffin, Coach Kim here, guys. We're week 8. We're rocking. I just asked Kim. I said, we've had a lot of success. She said, I think everyone's doing well. Considering the circumstances in some people's positions with spring break, sick parents, travel. So you've made it through the fire. I think from now till summer, there's not a whole lot. Maybe Easter, but Easter's
Yeah,
one day. Stay away from the
Cadbury
Starbucks.
egg.
I was I was gonna say the Starburst jelly beans are kind of the go-to for me. Um, but one of the things that so Kim and I, when we're talking about topics, a lot of times we'll kind of get some feedback from our clients on certain struggles or certain challenges. But one of the things I threw at her is I had seen this post, and I'm gonna actually read it. And I've spoken about this a couple of times. It's just kind of how do you identify, like, what do you identify with? Um, and the quote this that I saw on Instagram, it says, success isn't an event, it's an identity. The world doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you believe you are. If your identity is anchored in limitation, believing you're flawed, unworthy, unsafe, or incapable, those beliefs will shape your reality, no matter your effort. The quality of your life expands in direct proportion to the beliefs you're willing to question. Your greatest limitation isn't your circumstances, it's the beliefs that shape your identity. It's a lot to digest, and there's a lot of things that we can certainly go on that. But Kim, if I throw that at you, what is kind of your initial thoughts? We can kind of go back and forth, and we can kind of break this quote down, kind of paragraph by paragraph.
When you sent it to me, I'm like, absolutely. I think it's such a powerful thing because success isn't just what you do, it's about who you believe you are. I mean, I don't know how many posts I've started with. Would you quit believing that bullshit story that you've been telling yourself for forever? And I think that those things have kind of been built into us ever since we were kids. I have a big banner in my workout room that says, be who you are becoming, because sometimes that is about that identity shift. And who you were does not define who you are going to be in 6 months, a year, 5 years from now. But that struggle, if you're constantly telling yourself, man, I never follow through. Oh my God, every weekend I fall off track. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm weak or whatever the case may
Right.
be. You will believe that. I can't remember who said the famous quote about, if you believe you will or you believe you won't, you will be right. That's kind of what this all dials into as well. You got to change the voice of who you believe you are, and it comes in those little tiny step by step declarations or things that you are going to be disciplined enough to follow through with. That's why we set 1% goals and we don't set big, giant goals. Because if you keep following through on the little ones, you will become exactly who you want to become.
Henry Ford was the quote person, I
You know.
believe. Um, Kind of an analogy that I've always heard, and this is certainly maybe not true in the gym environment, but in like a corporate job, they say dress for the position that you want, not the position that you have. So you're always dressing up a level. Um, but for me, when I was 261 pounds, uh, I had fallen short and failed so many times. Like I was the king of I'm going to start on Monday and I kept falling short, or I'd do good on Monday and Tuesday I would crash, or I'd do good for a few days and I'd crash. And I'd say, starting Monday, starting Monday, starting Monday. And I started to believe it. I started to, I should say, I stopped believing that I could do it. And it was almost just lip service. And it probably made me feel good in the moment. I'm like, all right, let's order this pizza Sunday night. Monday is, I'm going to start eating good. Um, but I knew darn well that if there was any pizza left over on Monday, I would just eat it to get rid of it. And then I'd try to start, and I would just all these little things, right? And so the biggest thing for me, like I'll tell you, like this was a really emotional part in my life. I mean, I've told the story many times, but when I had kind of this epiphany, this breakdown, like I broke down in tears for hours, like 3 or 4 hours. Like it's a long time to cry. And I was so beaten down and I was so ashamed and I was so embarrassed of where I had become. And just, it was a really, really tough spot. And I took out pen to paper and journaled every little thing I felt that I needed to overcome, all my goals, all my challenges, a step-by-step process to where if I follow these steps, there's zero chance that I can't succeed. Right. And a lot of those steps were very, very little things. It wasn't like strength training 5 days a week. It was super small things. As small as you can get, like take my multivitamin every day. Like that doesn't take any real effort, but I needed to start believing that I could see success. So I believe early in our program, guys, it's really important. And I've hit this with the coaches many times. We want our clients to see victories early and often, so that we can start stacking these wins on top of each other, because then your belief starts growing. And when your belief starts growing, you start taking on more and you start winning and you start winning. And then you're starting to build bigger goals. And it really just starts from that first thing. As cliche it is as it is, what they say, every 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. It
Yep.
really is that simple. The second part of this quote, it says, the world doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you believe you are. Nobody cares what your goals are. They care what you're doing towards them, is kind of how I take that. And it's all stems from your belief system.
I agree. And I think that there's a little bit of imposter syndrome that can kind of sneak in when you start changing that identity, because you may not fully believe it yet. But with every single step, like you said, every single day you wake up and you decide that you are going to be disciplined enough to do one little thing, that's where that confidence in your ability to hit small goals turns into, man, I can hit big goals because I've been hitting these little small goals. But also, I think a big thing for me is I've never really been afraid to fall flat on my face. Yeah, and that's why I've tried so many different things and had different jobs,
Yeah.
and tried painting when I was in my freaking 50s. And it's just don't be afraid. Don't let that fear of the things that have stopped you in the past, don't let that define who you are today. It just shows that you just keep getting back up. You could spin that in your head and say, I'm not going to look at how many times I slipped and fell. I'm going to look at, oh, dang it, I got back up again and I'm willing to try. So what does that say about me? And that says a lot about perseverance. And if you spin that in a more positive direction, you're going to go in a positive way.
So the next part of this quote, it says, if your identity is anchored in limitation, believing you're flawed, unworthy, unsafe, or incapable, those beliefs will shape your reality no matter your effort. A big part of the program, when I'm sitting down with people and talking, I talk very little about the workouts, like 5 minutes. Like it's a small part. The biggest part I talk about is the coaching and accountability system. And what I say is, so often we've fallen short so many times that when you can have somebody breathe into you some positivity, some encouragement, somebody that is pushing you and challenge you. And the analogy I'll give, I said, our coaches, sometime they're going to be running in front of you and their goal is to have you start chasing them, right? There's other times that we're going to be walking with you, holding your hand, like you need a little bit more of that approach. And then there's going to be other times where we're chasing you because you're on fire, right? And we're starting to see some people within this program, within this challenge, that have started to create some big momentum. And now you're leading from the front and, Kim's chasing you. I don't know, some reason I'm picturing her chasing you with a knife, but it's not that brutal.
One hand.
Yeah, don't fear her. But that's what it's all about. And when you go and have that person that just builds you and lets you know what's possible and can let you know from, Kim's done this a lot, like hundreds and hundreds of clients. Like I've done this for 20 years. I can see things that maybe you don't see. So when I start to see somebody start to slip or they're checking as a daylight, like it's not just a day. It's the first sign that something's going backwards. And we want to pick you up. We want to push you. We want to meet you with where you're at. And we want to help you get back on, because it's not easy. It's tough. And there's a reason that having that coach helps you push to such a different level is because you don't like letting people down.
Exactly. And I would say when you had said about when we see that slip, what's also super powerful for me as a coach is when I finally see the light bulb go off in clients when they start to believe that they can actually do it and achieve it. I'm gonna get emotional. That's pretty powerful.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've helped a lot of people go a long ways, and sometimes it is like a light switch sometimes where you're picking up a bigger weight. You stayed disciplined over the weekend. You put down the drink, or maybe maybe it's something you had a glass of wine and had fun instead of having 3 or 4 glasses of wine. And when you can
100%.
really start valuing yourself enough to say, you know what, damn it, my goals are that important that I deserve this. I've got to work for it. Nothing's going to be given to you. But when you know you're deserving of something, when you know that your family deserves the best version of you and you start sticking up for yourself, and I think it's the ultimate sign of self-respect is being fit. Um,
100%.
I started looking at me being fat, me being unhealthy. It was there was a lot of self-disrespect being shown there, but I was disrespecting everybody that I love because they were getting a bad version of me. And that goes from my clients, that goes from our staff, that goes from my family, my wife and kids. Like I really felt when I started thinking about it that it was a giant level of disrespect. And I didn't think that in the moment. And that's probably just because I didn't want to face the reality of where it was. But when I started to change, I started to see so many other things in my life change. And my relationships improved. Bless my wife. You all know her. Um, I certainly,
It's
uh,
that ripple effect. That ripple
yeah.
effect.
I mean,
It's
I've said to people, I go, yeah, my wife said till death do us part, but she didn't know she was going to have this fat, lazy, grumpy version of her husband down the road, and she was signing up for that. Like she didn't deserve that. I certainly knew that I was worth more than that. And I started sticking up for myself. And when I see our clients starting to stick up for themselves and do the things that need to be done, whether it be staying after and getting some extra steps or walking outside or getting to their workouts more frequently or getting their check-ins on time,
so
it's
awesome.
it's the ultimate sign that you're elevating yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're spot on when you say that when you start taking care of yourself, a lot of people think it's a selfish thing, but man, every single person that you care about or that you communicate with on a regular basis is going to be elevated from that as well because you cannot show up as your best, whether it's son, daughter, husband, wife, teacher, coach, whatever you're doing in your life. You cannot do your best job if you are not feeling great about yourself. There's still something missing. Even if you're doing a good job, it's there's something missing, and you won't know that until you're there and you're like, people just say people's aura changes and their energy changes and their happiness. They're just happier. They smile more. They're more helpful. Just all of it. And it's so cool to see.
Well, and that's where identify it's kind of a generic word to me, but like how do you want to be perceived by everybody? Like what do you want to be known for? I didn't want to be known as a grumpy fat trainer. Like that bothered me when it really bothered me, but that's how I had sort of become. And if I wanted to change that, it's not something that you change over a day, you know?
Right?
And maybe I cared too much about others' opinions. But I cared a lot I knew where I was, and it was pretty miserable. I was probably my biggest critic when it came down to it. And I started to change. And, part of this quote, it says, your greatest limitation isn't your circumstances, it's the beliefs that shape your identity. And I started to have such high belief that I was worthy of looking a certain way. I started to feel and believe that I could be the most fit guy that I know getting towards 40 years old. I absolutely hate, and I've said this on, I hate when people blame circumstances that are out of what they deem out of their control for their current situation, whether it be my family's genes are this, or I'm so old, or I'm going through menopause, or uh, everyone in my family is fat, or genetically, like
You're
you're
hitting all my trigger buttons over there, Griffin, when I hear
those,
these.
those are all the things. If you keep blaming them, then you have an excuse.
Well, quit giving
And
your power away.
yeah,
Quit giving your power away. Genetics may load the gun, but man, your lifestyle is pulling the trigger. And if you believe anything other than that, it's BS.
yeah.
It's
Well, there was
because we have
that.
way too many mythbusters.
When
Wait.
I, when I talk to people were like, they'll throw everything. Everyone in my family's overweight. It's genetic. I gain weight really fast. They'll say all this stuff, and I go, "How do you know that's true?"
Yeah, where's the data?
I go, Well, you just told me you don't work out, you don't sleep. You told me you're overly stressed. You told me you only get 4,000 steps a day. You told me you eat out all the time and you're drinking on the weekend. How do we know those aren't the reasons that you're feeling this?
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe there are some circumstances that are a little out of our control, but when you've got 20 other things that you can change,
Why don't we
let's go
start
with that.
there?
Let's fix what we can
Yeah.
fix. You know, no one in my family's fit. I have a sister that's fit. Other than that, family on every side, out of shape, overweight, don't work out, skinny fat. We just had a small family reunion and it was ugly. It was really ugly, you know. Um, and people look at my family with my wife and my kids are obviously pretty fit children. My sister, her husband who's super fit, and her kids. And I almost feel like we walk in the door and I sure we walk in there, we stick out like a sore thumb because none of them look like that. None of them live like that. None of them have their priorities, in my opinion, in the right place. Um, outside your faith, I think your fitness is right there with the most important thing ever. And
Your
so
health definitely is because if you don't have that, you have nothing. I
nothing.
mean, everything will be affected.
Yeah.
Everything will be affected. And if you
Uh,
think it's hard when you're young, it does not get easier as you get older.
oh, yeah. I mean, people blaming their age. I'm like, well, how do you know it's because you're 50? How about it's because you haven't done anything in 20 years? Like, let's,
Right,
and,
right.
um,
Let's
that's why
just do it.
I, I encourage people to do a 12-month program to show a year of change. And we've been blessed and fortunate to work with a lot of our clients and customers, for well beyond that. And
Yeah. And
there's
they
a,
continue to rock it. That's what's so outstanding. They don't just get there and then, oh, I'm done. So I'm going to go back to doing what I used to do. They have literally, and what we promote is building a healthy lifestyle that you don't need to escape from, that's unique to you and your life. Every single client that we've worked with do things a little differently because nobody's living the exact same life. And that's what's so awesome about this program. I mean, we have, I mean, KO is like, what, 4 years now, and she's 66, and the woman keeps getting in better and better shape at 66. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, she's just outstanding. And it's so cool to see that ripple effect that just her deciding to make changes in her life, how many lives she has changed.
well, that's certainly true. I mean, it's a positive domino effect because it's a belief thing. When you start looking at, all right, well, she's older than me. If she can do it, I can do it. So it's little things like stack belief after belief, borrow some from other people. That's what having a coach, coaches will borrow you a lot of belief, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what it's all about. So, um, yeah, obviously Kim gets emotional about this. I'm probably trying to be tougher than I am, but yeah, you guys are all capable of some amazing, amazing things. And I believe that
Absolutely.
everyone is just sort of scratching the surface on what's possible. Because you look at this is 8 weeks, 8 weeks of engagement. What if we do this 8 years, 10 years, the rest of your life? Like, how do you feel you're going to look? Or how do you know you're going to look? The thing I hate most when I talk to people is when they want to reference how they used to look. Like, I don't care what you looked like in high school. I don't care what you looked like 10 years ago. I care about where you're at now. And
Yeah.
let's fix that.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I believe we're changing lives and yeah, I know we are.
100, 100%. And it's really, really cool. And like I said, everybody is doing fantastic. And when you can get through like the last couple weeks, right, where vacations and all that stuff, if you can do it, then there's wins and lessons, and the winning's coming, because the easier time's coming when you're at home, right? But then other people are like, it's so much easier when I'm vacationing because I don't have the pantry in my refrigerator calling my name. It's not filled with all my favorite treats. I only have the food that I have with, or I'm only eating a few times a day. So that's one person's perspective. And another person, oh my God, every time I, step foot out the door, I gain 5 pounds. Well, all comes down to choices. And what are your choices? They're going to lead you in a direction. Which way are your choices leading you?
Perfect way to end it. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everyone. And we'll be back with you next week as well.